Morning everyone. So in this really quick video, what I want to talk about is your relationship worth saving, and how do you know? So lots of people are in relationships where they are either struggling, there's certain patterns that keep emerging, and they may take the option of having couples counselling. They may take the option of having time apart, and I've made videos about all of these topics. They may decide to just walk away. But for many people, they're just not sure. So what tends to happen is, if you're not certain about what to do about your relationship, you can spend many years, months and weeks of just being uncertain. Nothing really gets addressed in the relationship, so nothing really changes. The patterns continue, the bickering, the arguing, the threats, the just not getting along, the lack of connection, lack of intimacy, all of that continues, but the person is just not sure. They're not quite ready to leave, but they're also not happy staying. So what I want to give you is some few ideas to consider if you want to know, is my relationship worth fighting for? The first thing to consider is, why do you want this relationship to work? Now that might seem really obvious, but for many people, it's a habit. You can sometimes be with someone from, say you started dating someone when you were a teenager and you're now in your 30s. If that's the only relationship you've ever known, the idea of leaving that relationship is really scary. So for many people, they will just remain with that person rather than moving on. And what you need to always consider if you're fighting for a relationship is why. What's the reason? Am I fighting because I'm committed to this person and I feel they deserve a chance? Am I fighting because I feel that the relationship has some longevity, that we can save it? Am I fighting because I don't want to be lonely? So you need to decide. That's really important. The second thing to consider is, this is really important, are you the only person fighting? If you're in a relationship and you're doing all of the work, you're the one that's saying you want to save the relationship, you're the one that's making all the effort to change, you're the person who is going to counselling, you're the person who's doing all the work, then you just need to think about, really, is that other person, your partner, committed to changing the relationship? It takes two people to fight when in a relationship, the same as it takes two people for things to go wrong. It takes two people for things to go right. It's never ever just one person, because that's kind of impossible. Because if two people are committed, or two people are in a relationship together, you function from each other. You operate as a team of people, so it's never really just what one person is doing. So if you're the person fighting, but the other person is just sitting back and saying, I don't care, or they might not even be saying that, they might just be indifferent. There are lots of relationships where the one person will just sit back and think, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I love this person, but I've got other options. Now, if you're in that situation, fighting for the relationship is pointless, because even if you get the gut intention where that person then says, yes, I'm going to stay, they're not really committed. So all that's going to happen is, you've done all the fighting, you've got what you wanted, but that person is going to be halfway out the door, and then you're just going to be constantly fighting to keep the person, and that's going to have an impact on you as a person, but it's also going to have an impact on the relationship. And the final thing to also consider is, does the good outweigh the bad? And what I mean by that is, and taking aside domestic violence relationships, because even if the good outweighs the bad, then that's just a different issue altogether. If someone puts their hands on you, or someone's verbally abusive towards you, even if they make that up with the positive, then it still doesn't outweigh the bad stuff. But in the majority of the time, if you feel that there is lots of positive things about this relationship, there is lots of things that outweigh the negative things that are occurring. So an example might be, although you bicker a lot, when you're not bickering, most of the time the person is helpful, most of the time they treat you well, you get along well, the intimacy between you is good, you have fun together, you share roles within the home. If there's like a majority of things are good, then there's a chance that you can work on the few things that are not so good. So it's about you deciding that for yourself. No one can tell you. And actually, one more thing to consider as well is there evidence of change? So if you're fighting for a relationship, there's normally a reason that something has gone wrong, and that's the reason you're considering leaving. Now, if you have evidence from the other person that things have changed, so an example could be, if there's constant cheating, and the person, you have evidence to suggest that the person is no longer cheating, that there's been a long period of time where they haven't cheated. Obviously you can't always be 100% sure, or the issue could be that there's a lack of intimacy, or the issue could be that this person has been gambling, or there's been an addiction, or there's been lies, or whatever it is. If you have evidence to show that there's that pattern of behaviour is now changing, or it's completely eradicated, then you might want to fight for the relationship, only if that was the main issue. So if the main issue was the person's gambling and they've gone to Gamblers Anonymous, they've stopped gambling, they're not hiding their receipts from you, you can tell from the money that's coming in that everything's fine, you might say, well, this is worth fighting for now because the main issue was the gambling, he's now resolving that. So it's up to you really to decide what evidence you need to indicate change. Are you willing to say that if someone is making enough effort, then it's worth fighting for? Or do you need absolute, elimination of that particular behaviour? So there's some of the things to consider. It's never a negative thing to fight for your relationship, especially if you've been with someone for a long time. But the downside to this is that too many people remain in a relationship and they continue fighting and fighting and fighting, but there's no change happening. There's no evidence that the other person is fighting as well. You just end up becoming emotionally exhausted from it. It doesn't change the situation. And I suppose it is just down to you. And as I've said, as a couples counsellor, but also I work with relationship stress, anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. Anything that is impacting on you physically and emotionally, you just need to consider, is it worth it? So I hope you found this video useful. Please feel free to like, to leave your comments, to share this video if you think it will benefit from anyone, and to subscribe if you want similar videos. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.